Good morning. For those who are new to OLLI, we are the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Berkshire Community College. We are a community of people committed to learning and having fun all together. We have over 1,500 members and are the largest lifelong learning program in Massachusetts. We offer 5 semesters of peer-led courses each year taught by volunteer instructors, and additionally offer scores of events, speakers and programs to connect the members of our OLLI community with each other and the world. All of our programs are volunteer driven, all of our instructors are volunteers, and we are so grateful for their expertise. I am Carol Allman-Morton, the executive director here at OLLI at BCC, and I'm so glad to be part of this community. Our summer 1 semester begins on June 5th. All of our courses are 4 weeks long, and I think that's true this semester. Yes, everything is 4 weeks long. It's much more simple than some of our other semesters. And due to holidays and just in case, always good to double check the dates that your courses will be meeting. Our June courses will be a mix of in-person, online, and hybrid or high flex with an in-person and online option. Thank you to our instructors again, and if you want to learn more and register, I'm going to put the link. If you haven't had a chance to look at the catalog yet, I'm going to put that in the chat. Oh, and it looks like we had a link problem today, so that's fun. Well, probably a lot of people are watching this on YouTube instead, so hello. In addition to courses, we have a number of special interest groups that members are welcome to join, and I'm going to put that link in the chat so you can see what those groups are and how to get connected with them. Many of these groups have special events, lectures, and programs. OLLI has a number of events coming up in the next few months, and I'm just going to highlight them, and you can always learn more on our website. Coming up next week, we have Gardening with Native Plants, How and Why with Amy Meltzer, providing habitat for pollinators, birds, and other essential wildlife. That's Monday, May 8th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And that's free and open to the public. So you're also welcome to share that registration link with any friend or gardeners in your life who you think might enjoy that program. We have a local author, Marjorie Metzger, is going to be speaking about her new book, Hidden Demons, Evil Visits a Small New England Town, on Tuesday, May 16th at 7 p.m. That's also free and open to the public on Zoom. And I'm going to put that link in the chat. We have our Mona Sherman Memorial Lecture coming up on Saturday, May 27th at 5 p.m. at the Mahawi in Great Barrington. Today's the last day for OLLI members to receive priority registration. Starting tomorrow, tickets will be available directly through the Mahawi only. So if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, today's the day to do it. We have a workshop coming up, Fusion Dance with Anna Mehta, on Monday, June 5th at 10:30 a.m. It's a combination of learning steps and a lecture about learning, to be inspired and learn about different cultures through dance. And Catherine Kidd is going to talk a little bit about the details on that later when she talks about her own class, but I'll put the link in the chat there if you want to learn more about that. It's a great way if you want to learn some dance steps to do it with very low stakes in your own living room on Zoom. The OLLI Distinguished Speaker Series presents Opening the Infrared Treasure Chest with the James Webb Space Telescope with Dr. John Mather on Wednesday, June 21st at 7 p.m. on Zoom. I was just posting it on Facebook yesterday and realized and put a joke in about our inner 10-year-olds like jumping up and down about this program. It's going to be amazing. Dr. Mather is a senior astrophysicist and is the senior project scientist for the James Webb Space Telescope at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. And I just realized the link for that isn't in my little list here. We'll add that in a second. And then finally, we welcome back Jeremy Goodkin as part of the OLLI Distinguished Speaker Series, speaking about the greatest classical string quartets on Saturday, June 24th at 4 p.m. in person at Lenox Town Hall. And we'll add that link in a second as well. So thank you for listening to all of that. We have a lot of stuff coming up. The moral of the story is make sure to check your email, look at our calendar so that you don't miss some of these great programs that are coming up. But what you're here to learn about today is our Summer 1 session, which, just as a reminder, if you want to follow along, here's the link to the catalog. So I'm going to turn it over to our instructors who are going to let us know a little bit about their courses, and why you should sign up. So our first speaker is John Dixon.
Thank you, Carol. And as always, thank you and Judith and Ray for all you do at OLLI for us. And once again, there's a great lineup of courses. When I'm looking at this Hollywood Squares, I see 3 or 4 classes I want to take already. So it looks like a great lineup. I'm going to be teaching Great Decisions. I think this is the 5th or 6th time I've been doing this. I know OLLI at BCC did it well before I jumped in a few years ago. But as opposed, this year we're going to do it over the course of the summer. Normally I teach it in the spring, but because I was teaching another class in the spring, we pushed it to the 2 summer sessions, which is actually helpful because in the past, over 6 classes, we were never able to get to the full curriculum. It is a nationwide curriculum, Great Decisions, to explore issues, current issues in international affairs. It's organized by the Foreign Policy Association. It's a curriculum that takes place all over the country. Every year they do 8 different issues, and we're going to split them up by doing 4 and 4 over the course of the 2 summer sessions. The first in June, we're going to tackle energy politics, war crimes, China and the US, and economic warfare. I've had one member of the class say, this is a very depressing class, but because if they were easy topics, there would be nothing to talk about. But they're hard and they're contemporaneous, and we explore. Obviously, with those, we're going to be talking at length about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You can't talk about that without can't talk about war crimes, energy, geopolitics, economic warfare, or even China without addressing a little bit of Russia and Ukraine. So the way the class is run is I give a little mini lecture, a little background ahead of time. We listen to a lecture by a Florida State professor, and then we open it up for discussion on these issues, which is what the Foreign Policy Association wants. It wants people to explore a little of the background and come to their own ideas, and they actually have a voting system afterwards, so you can express your own opinion. But so that'll take place in June, and I'm looking forward to it, and welcome you all if you have time when you have all these other great classes as well to look at. So thank you, Carol.
Oh, and John, can you just speak a little bit about the schedule for that class, just in case people were confused?
So the class is going to take place on Thursdays at Tuesdays at 9:30 to 11, except for the very first week of this June semester. I am unavailable. So what we did was we crammed in 2 sessions the last week of June, one on Tuesdays at 9:30, and then the last one will be an odd one on June 29th at 3:30. But we'll certainly go over that in great detail in the course of the class.
Great, thank you so much. Next up, we have Richard Matura.
Thank you, Carol. Most people don't know that Herman Melville wrote fiction for only about 10 years. After the critical and commercial failure of his greatest work, Moby Dick, he eventually gave up writing prose altogether, spending the rest of his life writing poetry, which few read today. But during that brief interim, before his abandonment of fiction, he wrote some of the most intriguing short stories. We'll be considering 4 in this course. First, The Piazza, a curious quest story that begins at his home here in Pittsfield, but takes him up into a strange fairyland in the foothills of Mount Greylock. Next, Bartleby the Scrivener, the story of a law clerk who today we might label as severely autistic, but to Melville perhaps symbolized something else, hinted at in the subtitle, A Story of Wall Street. Then we'll consider Benito Cereno, in which he takes up racism and slavery, but from a point of view that you will find perplexing, if not shocking. He wrote all of these at Arrowhead, the name he gave to his old farmhouse on Holmes Road in Pittsfield. But mounting debts forced him to move back to New York City, where he could get a job. There he published several volumes of poetry. But near the end of his life, almost as if his greater gift, fiction, needed to break through one last time, he wrote his final masterpiece, the manuscript found by his wife after his death. This was, of course, Billy Budd, a story of a young, innocent sailor and an intelligent and sensitive captain who nevertheless condemns Billy to death. So puzzling is the enigma of right and wrong, good and evil, justice and injustice, that people still argue about the meaning of the story today. And so you are welcome to join in the conversation. This will be an in-person discussion class, Thursdays, 1:30 to 3 at BCC from June 8th to the 29th. And I hope to see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Catherine Kidd.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to be leading a class that is very different from the classes I normally teach for OLLI, which is a hiking class. I'm doing it in partnership with my husband, John, who's not here today because he's in his OLLI class this morning. But we are going to be hiking in Pittsfield and on a variety of trails in the state forest. So a Department of Conservation and Recreation trail, a trail maintained by the Audubon Society, a trail maintained by Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and finally the Ashawillatuck Rail to Trail trail, which was extended into Pittsfield a year ago. This is also an experimental hiking class. We are doing it in partnership with Second Street Second Chances, which is an organization in Pittsfield that works with people who are coming out of the county jail and women who are coming out of the Chicopee Correction Center for Women. These are all people who've pled to or been found responsible for misdemeanors. They will be carefully screened by Second Street Second Chances. But one of the things that's very important for them as they re-enter the community is to find new things to do, new people to engage, and especially things that they can do with family and friends. And so the hiking trails, all of which are free and accessible, is a great way to introduce them to resources they might not know about in the community. And so we're going to be mixing the OLLI group with the Second Street Second Chances group in hopes that we will all get to know each other better and understand each other better as we explore these trails. We will be talking about the different habitats that we'll be traveling through because the trails are quite different. And especially the Boulders Trail, which was maintained as an open space by the Crane Paper Company to keep their water pure for the creation of US and Swedish currencies. So we're looking forward to having you. Also, if you look at it and think, oh, I would need hiking poles, Berkshire Natural Resources Council has very generously offered hiking poles. So we'll be having sets of excellent hiking poles that we can distribute if you don't have those yourself. However, you will need a good pair of shoes. So we're looking forward to this. And then I'd like to just add a plug for Anna Mehta's workshop on dance. John and I volunteer at Jacob's Pillow, and we just got our assignments this morning for the summer. But I'm one of those people who loves dance, but who has no background. I never took a dance class. I have never taken anything on the history of dance. And so Anna's class will include introduction to flamenco, introduction to modern dance, introduction to African and Asian dance. And all of those forms of dance are going to be part of the menu at Jacob's Pillow this summer. So if you're one of the OLLI members who goes to Jacob's Pillow and thinks, as I usually do, gosh, I wish I knew more about this kind of dance and how it differs from other dance. I think Anna's workshop is going to be really fun and really invaluable. She is a dancer herself, also a choreographer and educator. So I think that's it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Stuart Edelstein.
Hi, I'll be doing a course titled Surprising Sibs. It's an exploration of unlikely word pairs of common origin. Some words are like siblings, sharing the same parents. An easy example is a group of words based on Latin unus, one, like unicycle, unicorn, unique. That's not particularly intellectually stimulating. What is, though, intellectually stimulating? Less obvious siblings, such as carrot, hornet, court, horticulture, mussel, mouse, celery, sausage, tractor, contract, which vegetable. So, for example, how are dentist and dandelion related? Both are from Latin dens, meaning tooth. So it's pretty obvious that dentist is based on that root, of course. But what about dandelion? You need to know something about botany. The serrated leaves of the dandelion are like the lion's teeth. In French, dent de lion, which became our English word dandelion. In class, we'll explore other words in the dens family, and not only dental and denture and dentifrice and al dente, but also indent and indenture and the indentured servant. And we'll learn something about the history of the law before the invention of ways to copy documents. People needed to be able to substantiate what the original was. So there were serrated edges between two originals. While exploring etymologies of doublets, we'll also delve into such subjects as chemistry, history, sociology, economics, literature, botany, zoology, and of course the law. We'll explore these and many other doublets in an interactive format. I never call on anyone who doesn't volunteer, but I don't just lecture. Having taught several OLLI courses on etymology, I can tell you it's a very lively, engaging experience. This June, I'll be teaching June 6, 13, 20, and 27. They're all Tuesdays from 11:30 to 1 in West Stockbridge. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce my course.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Stephen Glick.
Hi there. I'll be teaching a course called 4 Steps to Personal and Spiritual Growth. This will be a very personal course. What you'll be looking at and learning about is yourself, how you think, the concepts you hold, those thoughts and concepts that work for you, those thoughts and concepts that don't work for you. I've been personally on I'd say a conscious spiritual path for 50 some years. And these concepts that we're going to be looking at are those that have been really critical in my own process. The first and really key concept is self-acceptance. And the design of the course is to have first a small, quick introduction, and then there'll be a series of questions that you'll be writing down answers to, and then working in groups of 2 or 3 to share your responses. And at the end, there'll be a group coming back and sharing and just general thoughts that have come up from from everybody. After self-acceptance, we'll look at letting go. People tend to hold on to things and thoughts that really don't work for them. And you can't really move forward in your life until you let go of what it is that doesn't work for you. And part of that evolves into stories. We carry around stories, and those stories stay with us. And some of the stories work for us, but a lot of them don't work for us. So we'll be looking at the stories that both work for us and stories that don't work for us. And at the end, the goal is to open the heart, to become more loving for yourself and for other people, letting go of the judgments and just opening the heart. So I think it'll be fun for everybody to really engage with an examination of their own process. The course will be given on Tuesdays at 1:30 at the Foundry in West Stockbridge. And it'll be fun to see you, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I'm going to read a couple of messages from instructors who weren't able to be here with us in person today. So first, I'm going to let you know about the class today's headlines. The moderator for this session will be Len Tabbs, who is a self-employed financial consultant, former chief financial officer of Fortune companies, and frequent OLLI moderator for today's headlines. He is a past president and current treasurer of OLLI at BCC. Today's headlines is a moderated discussion course that provides an opportunity to voice your opinions on national and international issues. Serving as a guide and provocateur, the moderator will introduce selected topics drawn from a variety of newspapers and the internet. Lively discussion is the centerpiece of this course. It's a course with some diehard fans who come every semester, and also a great opportunity to get to know some people and have a very interactive class. They meet on Mondays at 11 a.m. In June, and Monday the 19th is a holiday, so they won't be meeting that day. So they're the only class that'll be meeting into July. They'll meet on July 3rd. So hopefully that will be okay for people. They won't be traveling, but it's on Zoom. So wherever you are, you can log in and join in the last session. So that is today's headlines. Next, we have a class called Threats to Democracy and Our Responses: 4 Conversations with Scholars and Activists. This is a class put together by Dr. Tom Garrity. Tom is an OLLI favorite, and we're really excited about this class. He's pulled together an amazing group of scholars and activists to participate. Dr. Garrity taught constitutional law through most of his career. He retired as collegiate professor of law and humanities at NYU and headed up the Brennan Center for Justice and was president of both Trinity and Amherst colleges. He has law and philosophy degrees from Yale. So this class is going to meet on Zoom Tuesdays at 3:30. And I'll just read, well, you can go on the website and look at all the people, but I'll just give you the highlights. So the first week will be with Sekou Franklin, Tennessee scholar and activist at Middle Tennessee State University. The second week will be with Liz Schneider, feminist law professor at Brooklyn Law School, and Carrie Baker, Smith College's chair in American Studies and a committed scholar in women's and gender studies. The third week will be Lies of Originalism and a New Era of Gun Violence with anti-gun activists from Body Count and Cardozo law professor David Rudenstein. That session, just so you know, will be pre-recorded because Tom will be on a plane that day, but you'll have opportunities to send questions in both before and after that session that he will answer for you. And then finally, Trumpism and the Risks of an Authoritarian America with Lawrence Douglas, author of Will He Go?, which is a book about Trump that came out in 2020. And Lawrence is a legal scholar, political commentator, and novelist from Amherst College. So that's Tom Garrity's class. I hope you sign up. It's gonna be fun. Well, it's gonna be rough, but it's gonna be fun and interesting at the same time too. All right, next we have another OLLI favorite, Anne Berman. Anne recorded a welcome video, but we had some technical issues, so I'm going to share some information about her class. She's teaching Henry VI, Part 2, How Shakespeare Shaped Drama from History. Anne Berman has participated in lifelong learning programs for more than 10 years. She previously was a middle and high school level special education teacher. She earned a master's degree in Shakespeare Studies from King's College in London in 2018. Her course will be on Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. on Zoom, and we'll meet for 4 weeks. And this is her description. Why Henry VI and why Part 2? In one of Shakespeare's earliest plays, he tackles the conflicts that led to the War of Roses and introduces Margaret of Anjou, queen to King Henry, aggressive advocate for her heir, and the only Shakespeare character to appear in 4 plays. We'll look at the historical context of the play's time frame and see how Shakespeare shaped events and characters to suit his dramatic purposes. And for those class participants in the Berkshires, there'll be an optional visit to see a performance of the play at Shakespeare and Company in Lenox. She says any copy of the play is fine, but she'll be using the Folger Library edition. So if you want to be on the same page and line numbers, then she recommends that edition. All right, and now I am going to turn it over to Don Barkin.
Hi, I'm going to be teaching a 4-session course on the poetry of Emily Dickinson. And before I forget, I'll also mention that beside the 4 sessions, there's going to be a bus trip to Ms. Dickinson's home in Amherst on July 6th, which you can sign up for separately from the course. It's a visit to her house and also the Benesky Museum of Natural History at Amherst College. So that's, in addition, we can see that day whether Dickinson, the Emily Dickinson that we've formed in our minds and hearts turns up in the house. Whether we can see, it's always fun wandering around somebody's house when they're not there, seeing if you can sniff the person in the arrangement of photos on the piano and the dishes in the sink. I don't think she left any dishes in the sink, but still, we'll see. Emily Dickinson is what a younger generation would call iconic. The trouble is that most people have a snapshot of her in mind as a quaint, eccentric, and difficult woman poet or poetess even, who took to her, took not to her bed, but to her house in the middle, early in her life. And that's technically true, but she left big muddy tracks behind, which are her poems. And the poems tell you more than you ever wanted to know about her as a person. She said, for instance, she wrote a letter to a literary lion, a man called Higginson. She said, Mr. Higginson, are you too deeply occupied to say if my verse is alive? Well, that's a very queer thing to say to somebody you don't know. It's half of it passionate and very, very plaintive, and the other half polite in a kind of Victorian Amherst sort of way. Or if you're not too busy, could you tell me whether my verse is alive? She was a sneaky one. And she also wrote to him, since I had a terror, she said, since September, I could tell to none. And so I sing, as the boy does by the burying ground, because I am afraid. She told him she was so frightened by something in her life that poetry was her only mouthpiece, her only way to speak. She was too frightened otherwise. That's a tremendous admission, again, to somebody she hadn't met yet and barely knew. We're also going to, so we'll be reading her poems is what we'll be doing, reading the hell out of them. They're just endlessly interesting and worth talking about because they really apply to each of us. And you're more than free to have your own reading of each of the poems. We won't be landing on you from a great height with an official explanation of the poems, although I hope all of us will feel more at home in them by the time we're done. We're also going to read a little bit in the writings of some of her coevals, two local people, Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, whom she read and admired, and I think got a real kick out of, and also Walt Whitman, whom she didn't read. She heard that his poems, she said she hadn't read them, but she heard they were disgraceful. I don't think she would have found them that if she actually read them. To be fair, he didn't read her either on account of she hadn't been published. But nonetheless, these people were all talking out of the same countryside in America at that time. It was an incredibly fertile period, sort of like Boston in sports right now. You know, everybody was in the playoffs. And it's exciting to see these personalities speaking out from different manses and from the woods and from Manhattan. So that's the course, pretty straightforward. We read the poems, we talk about them in as free a way as possible. I'll give you some background. And then there's the bus trip, which I think involves lunch, which is always an attractive possibility. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next up is Shireen Nash.
Thank you, Carol. And before I continue, I want to say hi to John Schreiber. Thank you for being here. And I wanted to say that this is a course, some audacity trying to give this course, because many of you know that I'm a retired pathologist. My background is in medicine, some science, and I have no background in art. However, over the years, my husband and I have been reading JAMA. And in the years between 64, or let's say 74 and 2013, the covers of JAMA were graced by amazing paintings. All of these were gathered together by a senior editor by the name of Terry Southgate. So my goal is to show you some of these images, the ones that sort of grabbed me, and show them to you. In the first lecture, we'll be talking about what is the AMA, and what is JAMA, and who was Terry Southgate. And that first lecture will also cover some of her favorite images. And I found that in that collection, the Bellows paintings are just absolutely incredible. And I was shocked to know that he died of appendicitis at age 49 and would have had an incredible more output had he lived a normal lifespan. Included in that first group is another artist from California by the name of Theodore Juarez. And his story is totally incredible, and his images are absolutely delightful. So I'll be covering those in lecture 1. Lecture 2, I think Terry Southgate made sure that she didn't just have images related to medicine. However, in the second lecture, I do want to identify the images related to medicine, art related to medicine. And I start with Thomas Eakins, who is supposed to be the most famous American realist. And I will start with the Gross Clinic and the Eakins Clinic and continue with more medically related art. What really amazed me, and this is thanks to Terry Southgate, did anybody know, I'm sure those who are artists or art historians know, that Picasso had a painting when he was 15 in 1894 called Science and Charity. And this is a remarkable example of social realism. Of course, after that, he went into Cubism and Surrealism and whatever. But this is so strange and so different that I am going to talk about that. Then the next session will be on women artists that Terry Southgate chose to put their pictures on the cover of JAMA. And I will start with Hildegard von Bingen and go all the way through to Alice Neal. Obviously, women artists were really not prominent in the 19th and 20th centuries, but in the 20th and 21st centuries, there are several, most of them American, and I will be showing you those images and talking about them. I think what caught me is Alice Neal. Alice Neal has done some remarkable, I guess you'd call those social realism too, remarkable paintings that will be discussed. And finally, the last talk will be on artists, art, and disease. And the three disease or ailments that I chose were alcohol, smoking, and tuberculosis. All three of these affected artists over the years. And the one that I want to talk about is Edvard Munch, who was affected by alcoholism and whose family was devastated by tuberculosis. So I will be showing his paintings. And I can tell you that the Clark Art Museum has an exhibit on Munch this year. So that should be very timely. And finally, just one word, this famous Van Gogh skull with cigarette. As a pathologist, I thought that Van Gogh knew about the problems with cigarettes. Nonsense. He was showing that as an image of making fun of academia, where they just showed people how to do art in an academic way. And this was his sense of a joke. So he knew nothing. He loved smoking. He smoked till he died. And this is nothing to do with him being anti-cigarette or anti-smoking. So thank you. I hope that you will enjoy. I kind of enjoyed this course so much because I learned so much. And everywhere along the way, I'm going to weave medicine and science into the pictures as I talk about them. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Carol. And I'm done.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Phil Deely.
Great. Let me see if I can get up an image here too. Because the topic that I'm going to be looking at here, and let's see, does that come up to full screen?
It looks great.
Good. Weimar Germany is the period that bridged the history of Germany and indeed the history of Europe and the world from the time of the First World War up until the collapse of the Weimar Republic and the ascension of Adolf Hitler. And I'm drawn to the period of Weimar for several reasons. A personal one, my mother's family was French, and my mother was born in 1919, the year after World War I, and she was named Lorraine. And she was named Lorraine after the province of France that had been taken by Germany in 1871 of Alsace-Lorraine. And throughout her family's growing up, they always said, think of it always, speak of it never. So when we think about World War I, there was a depth of feeling expressed, I find, very effectively in Flanders Fields, the impact that set the ground for Weimar Germany. Let's see if I can get to my next slide there. The remnants of World War I are still very much to be seen. It had a tremendous impact on Weimar at the time, but even today, look at the ground in Verdun. That's the way the ground looks today. And Oh, by the way, 600 tons of shells are taken out of the ground every year today. 600 tons, every square meter from the coast to Switzerland had about a ton of munitions dropped on it, and about a third of those munitions never exploded. These are all facts that had tremendous impact on the people of Weimar as they were adjusting to a new political reality. They adopted a new constitution, and in fact, they adopted a constitution that provided for universal suffrage. In the first election after World War I, 30,000 Germans voted and participated in the political process. There was tremendous hope. At the same time, there was tremendous challenge. And the Weimar period elicits so many images, such a varied period. The hyperinflation of 1923, and you see the kids playing with the piles of dollars. I'm a stamp collector, and I have a 60 billion mark franc stamp, overprinted from a 1 franc stamp. The Blue Angel, Dietrich, lording it over the scene in the nightclub. The wonderful intellectual imagination and insight of the Bauhaus, not only the design, but the community of people who live there. And then as a kind of, initially as a grace note underneath, you see an image of the Freikorps, the German veterans who felt totally dispossessed, who felt totally alienated by everything they saw in German society, from sexual liberation to the impact of inflation to the design of modern design. They believed that Germany had been stabbed in the back by socialists and Jews, and they were looking for liberation from this. And so finally, at the end of Weimar, the new generation awakes, a generation that had fought in the war, many, exemplified, of course, by the young Corporal Adolf Hitler, seen here pledging his eternal allegiance to von Hindenburg and to the Reich. This promise lasted for less than 3 months. And of course, with the collapse of Weimar and the rise of Nazism, a tremendous earth-shattering change took place. Weimar is often used, and actually this was my topic for my graduate work, is often used as an analogy for modern American society, where intellectuals and others extract from Weimar cautionary notes as they look at American society. I was focused on the 1960s, but it's certainly not uncommon in recent years to hear discussions of Weimar and the cautionary notes that are there. So we'll have discussions of art and literature. This, since it's a 4-session class, this is not going to be historical marching through date by date by date. It's rather going to be a thematic series of thematic discussions, and I suspect we'll get deep into modern American politics as well. So I hope that you'll consider this. I have a couple of good speakers that I can't talk about quite yet because I haven't gotten definitive answers from them, but with any luck, we should have them lined up. And so looking forward to it. This is all Zoom all the time. And it's on Thursdays, last 4 Thursdays in June, 11:30 to 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, oh, don't forget you'll need to unshare. There you go, perfect. Next we have John Schreiber.
Thanks very much. I'm new to this, and so I appreciate the invitation, and I'm humbled by the various courses that are being taught. I'm actually a pediatric infectious disease doctor, and as you can see from this, I'm still in my office. I work 1 day a week. I'm winding down. I spent about 20 years doing immunology research, studying bacterial infections of children, and then morphed into other jobs after that. And I was retired, and I was called up from the bench for COVID, and for 3 years was supposed to be a part-time, couple of months gig, turned into a 3-year full-time job I was at Connecticut Children's Hospital in Yukon. So that's where I am 1 day a week. And what I wanted to do, what I observed and really learned from COVID was how little people really knew about pathogens and how vaccines work and immunology works and the public health achievements and all of this. So I thought what I would do is have a 4-session course. And the first session is really about pathogens. And we're surrounded by microorganisms that basically want to kill us. But we're not most of the time. We survive just fine. And that's due. So the first talk will really be about various pathogens, viruses, and bacteria and parasites. And you can see traveling with an infectious disease doctor to an exotic place is not a lot of fun, because all we think about is what infection we're going to get. And it's a killer when you're at dinner or something. It's not a lot of fun. So don't take an infectious disease doctor on a traveling trip to an exotic place. So we'll talk about pathogens first and walk people through 3 big categories. And the style is going to be about 30 to 40 slides, and then open it up to discussion and questions, and just have a very dynamic situation. So people have lots of questions, and we'll just open it up to that. It'll be by Zoom. The next 2 sessions will really be basic immunology. So we've evolved an incredibly elegant way to fight all these pathogens that want to kill us. And most of the time they can't, because we have this incredibly evolved immune system that's quite elegant. And I'm also going to talk about how we've exploited that to create vaccines that are probably the best public health achievement in the history of mankind. Now, I'm going to tuning out Fox News and Newsmax and all the radio static. It's just the facts, and we're going to share the immunology behind it and the data showing actually what vaccines have done in terms of children, because I'm a pediatrician, and you may not realize it, but most of the cemeteries in New England, old ones, are basically cemeteries of children, because most children died. And most of them died of vaccine preventable diseases that we just don't even think about today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about vaccines, the immunology behind it. Obviously, in 3 hours, you can't talk about everything, and open up for discussion. Again, 30, 40 slides. The last talk is on colonial medicine and explaining to everyone what was it like to be a doctor before we had all this stuff. So in 1770 in New England, what was it like to be a doctor in a small village? And I'll use New Marlborough as an example because that's where I live. And I'll give you a tour of the New Marlborough Cemetery. It's really a public health tour of 1780. Now, the New Marlborough Cemetery is unique in that it's still in active use from 1755 until today, which is not common. Usually they fill up. So there's some interesting public health mechanisms. You'll see that it's very young people early on. A lot of women in childbirth die. It's just full of women in their 20s and 30s. And then you get to the newer parts of the cemetery, and it's either trauma or it's old people. It's very interesting. So you really see the history of public health in the New Marlborough Cemetery. So it'll be 4 talks. And they are Friday mornings, I think at 9:30. Is that correct, Carol? And again, I'm very excited to be here. I haven't done this before, and I look forward to talking and having a lot of feedback for each one of these talks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Okay, so I have a couple more to share on behalf of some other folks. So next up is Science Conversations. It's a continuing favorite. Join us to discuss science news appearing in the Tuesday Science Times section of the New York Times, plus magazines and journals. Moderators for the session will encourage a vigorous give and take. Student suggestions for discussion topics and additional readings are welcome. This session will be moderated by Dr. Hank Gold, a retired radiologist with wide-ranging interests. He holds an MD from Rush Medical College and an undergraduate degree in biology from Columbia. That meets on Fridays at 11:30. So you could go to immunology and then follow it up with science conversations. And that will also be on Zoom. And then also on Friday, we have a treat that I don't remember who it was who secured this course for us, but we are grateful. The history and development of the classical double bass in orchestral and solo settings. We have the principal bassist with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, Edwin Barker, is going to come and lead a class for us, which is remarkable. I'm going to read you the description and then explain how the meetings will work. He writes, the double bass, often considered the backbone of the orchestra, is known for its role in establishing the harmonic and rhythmic foundation of the ensemble. This course will explore the bass's soloist role as a sonorous, lyrical, and expressive musical instrument. These 4 classes will transport you from the origins of the double bass's role in ensemble playing through the Baroque, classical, romantic, and contemporary eras. It will culminate in a discussion of its less known role as a solo instrument. The art of playing the bass encompasses bowing techniques, postural challenges, and an understanding of musical styles, which will give insights into some behind-the-scenes secrets that can turn a series of notes on a page into a magical experience, indefinable by words alone. The course will include recordings of bass virtuosi from different eras, as well as live demonstrations on the bass of the musical skills discussed by Edwin Barker. The final class will be a live double bass recital. So this course will be hybrid or high flex. You can register on Zoom or in person, but for those who register on Zoom, if you prefer to be on Zoom, maybe because you're traveling or whatever, but you're going to be in town on the last day of class, the 30th, you can still come in person to the concert that will be at the end. We've got the first 3 classes will be at Zion Lutheran here in Pittsfield, and then the recital at the end will be at Lenox Memorial Middle and High School. The other thing is, depending on how many people sign up for the class and how many seats we have, we may be able to sell tickets to that last day if you just want to come to the concert but aren't signed up for the class. So keep your ears out for that. It'll depend on if we sell all the seats in the room to class members, then that's that. But if we have space, we'll make it available to folks who aren't in the class. Any questions about that? I just said a lot of things. If you have them, you can put them in the chat. Okay, we also have, this is another class. This is from John Trainer. He is going to be leading a course called Proof, a play by David Auburn. In this Pulitzer and Tony Award-winning play, David Auburn explores the dilemmas of family relations, dementia, heredity, and genius. Partly by reading sections of the play aloud in class, and partly by discussion, we will consider different possibilities of staging, directing, and acting to see the various ways one might present the characterization and even the meaning of the play. John wanted me to make sure that folks know that he wants folks to read the play before you come to the first class so that you can dive right in. He'll be using the Dramatist Plays Service Edition, but you can use any edition you choose. That course will be meeting in person here at BCC Wednesdays at 11:30 in the morning. And then last but hopefully not least, I'm teaching a class this session. I'll be leading a course on folk dancing from the Balkans. It will be an introduction to international folk dancing. As we move through the steps, we'll talk about the historical context of the dances we're doing, where they're still danced today, and a little about the music that we're hearing. The dances will be accessible for beginners, and I hope also fun for folks who may have been dancing all their lives. Our class will be low impact, but you'll need to be able to stand and move for 90 minutes. We'll take some breaks. You'll be able to make adaptations as we go if some of the movements don't work well with your body. We won't be doing a lot of jumping up and down, but there's lots of stuff with your knees. We'll be dancing in lines, holding hands. If that makes you uncomfortable COVID-wise or for any other reason, you're welcome to dance behind the line so you can have a little bit of extra distance. For shoes, just wear whatever is comfortable for you. We're going to be on a hardwood floor. But I encourage you, so that we can save the floor, to bring a second set of shoes with you, not to wear your street shoes in, because the little bits of sand and gravel really ding up a floor. Bring some water with you and comfortable clothes. And we're going to meet in person here at the gym at BCC on Wednesdays at 1:30. So that comes to the end of our descriptions. I'm just double checking the chat if there's any questions or anything from instructors that we missed. Okay, great. So I want to thank all of our instructors, and I want to thank Judith and Ray for helping out behind the scenes to make this go smoothly today. And for everybody who was here, I'm really grateful that you have been here and gotten to learn a little bit more about the summer. If you have questions or need help with your registration, I'm just going to put a last couple of things in the chat. Our email at the OLLI office and our phone number. We're here answering phones from 9 to 4. And otherwise, we'll see you on the first day of class. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Take care.